My mother always said that her family was full of witches, and that her grandmother had the ojo, the evil eye. She always said it in a playful tone, like it was a silly family legend, but the way she avoided follow-up questions never sat right with me. Anyway, all of that came into play last year, after my grandmother, her mother, passed away. It happened quietly. We didn't even know she was sick. One day, my mom just got a phone call, and by that evening she was booking a flight to Mexico. I asked if I could go with her, and she immediately said no. "It'll be boring," she said. "Just family stuff." That was her favorite deflection. But something in her voice cracked when she said it this time. Like she didn't even believe it herself. She was gone for about 10 days. During that time, she didn't answer any of my texts. The few times I called, it either rang out or went straight to voicemail. It wasn't until she returned that I realized something was wrong. She looked exhausted. Like she hadn't slept the entire time. Her skin was pale and dry, and her voice was hoarse. When I hugged her at the airport, she flinched. That's not like her. My mom's always been warm, physically affectionate. But it was like I startled her just by touching her. Over the next few days, she barely left her room. She wasn't eating, wasn't watching TV, and every night I could hear her muttering under her breath. It was Spanish, but it wasn't how she usually spoke. The words came out harsh and staccato, almost like chanting. I would knock on her door, but she always told me she was just praying or needed rest. I didn't press. I honestly didn't know how. Then the dream started. At first, I thought it was just me. I started waking up at exactly 3:17 a.m. every single night. And every time, I would have the same lingering image in my head, my mom standing at the foot of my bed, whispering something I couldn't hear. I assumed it was stress. But then, one night, I woke up and she was actually there. She was just standing there. Her back was turned to me, but I could tell it was her from the outline, the way her shoulders were hunched, and the white nightgown she had been wearing lately. I sat up slowly, heart pounding, and said, "Mom." She didn't answer. She just walked out of the room. The next morning, I asked her about it. She stared at me like I was crazy. Said she hadn't left her bed all night. That maybe I was dreaming. But I knew I wasn't. Later that week, I went into her room while she was at the store. She had this old wooden box tucked under the bed that I'd never seen before. It had no lock, but it was sealed shut with some kind of twine that had symbols drawn on it in black ink. I opened it anyway. Inside were dozens of small paper talismans, handwritten in what looked like a mix of Latin and something else entirely. There was a bundle of dried herbs, some of which I recognized from my childhood, like rue and sage, and others that looked almost burnt. And right in the center was a photo. Old, black and white, creased. It was of a woman who looked almost exactly like my mom, only older. Her face was stiff, unsmiling. Her eyes, they didn't look human. I put everything back exactly as I found it and didn't bring it up. But that night, I woke up again at 3:17. This time, the figure at the foot of my bed was not my mother. It had her shape, her clothes, but the way it moved was wrong. Its limbs twitched, like a puppet. Its head tilted too far to the side. I reached for the lamp on my nightstand, and in the second before the light came on, I swear it was crawling toward me. I screamed. The light flicked on, and the thing was gone. My mom burst into the room seconds later. She didn't even ask what happened. She just looked at me and said, "You opened the box, didn't you?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. That night, we sat in the living room until dawn. She told me the truth. Her family was cursed. A bloodline that had dabbled in old magic, brujeria that was never meant to be passed down. Her grandmother had made a pact with something ancient, something that lived beyond our world. It promised power in exchange for silence, and that pact had been kept for generations. Until now. My mom had gone back to Mexico to seal the curse again after her own mother passed. But something had gone wrong. She said she saw things in the house, shadows that didn't belong to anything. Her childhood bedroom was covered in strange symbols she didn't remember drawing. And worst of all, she found out she hadn't been the only one contacted. The entity had moved on, to me. She handed me the talismans and told me to burn them at sunrise. To bury the ashes in the backyard, and never ever speak its name out loud. I did exactly that. Since then, the dreams have stopped. But some nights, I still wake up at 3:17 a.m., heart pounding, convinced something is watching me from the hallway. And sometimes, when I look into my mother's eyes, I swear I still see that same inhuman stare from the photo. I used to think I was a heavy sleeper. Nothing ever woke me up. Not storms, not my phone buzzing, not even my dog barking at the raccoons in the backyard. But all that changed the night I moved into my first apartment. It was a cheap one-bedroom in an older building on the edge of town, the kind with creaky floors and peeling wallpaper, but it was mine. I was excited to finally live alone. No more roommates, no more awkward conversations, just peace and quiet. Or so I thought. The first night was uneventful. I unpacked, watched some TV, and passed out on the mattress I had tossed on the floor. But around 3 a.m., I woke up suddenly, not because of a sound, but because I felt watched. It was an overwhelming sensation, like someone was standing right over me. But when I turned on the lamp, the room was empty. I chalked it up to nerves. New place, new sounds. Maybe it was just my mind adjusting. I laughed at myself and went back to sleep. But it happened again the next night. And the night after that. Always around 3 a.m. Always that same feeling, someone right there. I began waking up in cold sweats, my heart pounding like I had just run a mile. But no matter how fast I turned on the light, nothing was ever there. I even checked the closets, the bathroom, the hallway. Nothing. Then, I started locking my bedroom door before bed. That's when it got worse. One night, I woke up to the sound of the doorknob turning. Slowly. Deliberately. I sat up, frozen. It turned once, then stopped. And then came 3 soft knocks. Not loud, just enough to be heard. I couldn't move. I just stared at the door, barely breathing. After a few minutes, the silence returned. When I got the courage to open the door, the hallway was empty. But I noticed something new, muddy footprints. Small ones, like from bare feet. They led from the front door, down the hall, and stopped right outside my bedroom. I called the landlord the next morning, furious. I told him someone was breaking in. He sounded annoyed but came by to check. The front door showed no signs of forced entry. The windows were locked. He said maybe I forgot to clean up after bringing in groceries. I hadn't left the apartment in 2 days. The next night, I set up my phone to record while I slept. I pointed the camera at the bedroom door and let it run. At 2:58 a.m., the footage showed the doorknob begin to jiggle. At 3 o'clock, the door slowly creaked open. Even though I swear I locked it. And then, a shadow. A tall figure stepped into the room and just stood there. Watching me. It didn't move. It didn't speak. It just stared. It stood over me for 6 full minutes before stepping back out of the room and closing the door. I didn't wake up once during that recording. But when I saw the footage, I nearly threw up. I took the video to the police. They inspected the apartment again, but found no signs of a break-in. They said I probably staged it. Some kind of social media prank. I moved out the same day. I never went back for the deposit, or the rest of my stuff. And I never posted the footage online. Not because I'm scared of people thinking I faked it, but because sometimes, when I'm lying in bed, in my new apartment, I wake up at 3 a.m. And I swear, I can still feel him watching. This happened during my freshman year of college. I went to a small liberal arts school in Oregon. The dorm building I lived in was old. Like, creaky floorboards and peeling wallpaper old. Supposedly, it had been a hospital back in the early 1900s before being converted into student housing. Most people thought that was cool. I thought it was creepy as hell. My room was at the very end of the third-floor hallway. And right across from it, directly opposite my door, was another door. But this one was different. For starters, it didn't have a room number. Every other door in the hall had a brass plate with a number. This one, just a blank, faded surface with a rusted doorknob and a keyhole that looked ancient. I assumed it was some maintenance closet or something, and didn't think much of it, until about a month into the semester, when I started hearing things from behind it. At night, usually after midnight, I'd be lying in bed, headphones off, lights out, and I'd hear faint shuffling. Like someone slowly pacing back and forth. At first, I thought it was just someone in the room next to mine. But the sound always came from the wall behind the mystery door, directly across from me. And it wasn't just walking. Some nights, I'd hear soft scratching, like nails dragging across the inside of a wall. I mentioned it to my RA. He gave me a weird look and told me that door had been sealed for years. Said no one had the key. But the following night, I woke up to a different sound. Knocking. 3 slow, deliberate knocks from across the hall. I sat up in bed, heart pounding. I didn't move. Didn't open my door. The knocking stopped. A few minutes later, I worked up the courage to peek through the peephole. But all I saw was the empty hallway. Then one night, I made a mistake. I left my room to use the communal bathroom down the hall. It was around 2 a.m. I came back and noticed something that made my blood go cold. The door, the weird door, was open just a crack. It hadn't been open when I left. I was sure of it. I stood there frozen, staring at the black void beyond the door. There was no light, no sound. Just stillness. Then, from the darkness, I heard a whisper, "Come see what's behind the wall." I ran back into my room and slammed the door shut. I shoved my desk against it and didn't sleep that night. The next morning, the weird door was closed again. Locked, sealed, like nothing had happened. I asked my RA again, and he just shrugged. Said I must have imagined it. I switched dorms a week later. This took place when I was 13. My family rented a cabin by a lake every summer, same spot, same time. It was a quiet place in Minnesota, nestled deep in the woods. We loved it. Swimming, fishing, no cell reception, just nature. That summer, everything was normal. Until the third night. My cousin Jake and I were out by the dock skipping stones. The sun had just gone down, and everything had that bluish twilight glow. That's when we saw it. Something big moved beneath the surface. A ripple. A shape. At first, we thought it was just a big fish. But then it surfaced for a second, and it wasn't a fish. It had skin. Pale, almost translucent skin. And a face. Just for a moment. A human-like face with sunken eyes. Then it vanished. Jake swore it was a log. I said it looked like a body. That night, I couldn't sleep. Around 2 a.m., I looked out the window toward the lake. And I saw movement. There was something crawling out of the water. I pressed my face to the glass. It was dragging itself up the shore on all fours. Long limbs. Thin, dripping, hairless. It moved awkwardly, like it hadn't walked on land in years. Then, just as it reached the tree-line, it stood up. And looked straight at our cabin. Straight at me. I dove back into bed and pulled the covers over my head. I didn't sleep at all. The next morning, I told my parents. They said I had a bad dream. But 2 nights later, we found footprints by the shore. Long, narrow ones. Like human feet, but too long. Too thin. And they led straight from the lake to the woods. We left early that year. And we've never gone back.